What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I wanted to go into about a 10 or so games that we're playing. I think it's 10 exactly for the college slate. Now, the reason I wanted to go into them is because, again, when I do my NFL videos, there's narratives involved, there's playoff ramifications, all sorts of things. I do start using my spread metric around this time of year, week 3, 4, 5. But for college football, it's basically what I use in the majority. So 80% of, I would say, my rationale comes down to if I think a team's going to cover a spread based off of their record against the spread. And it's funny because I've never seen this mentioned before. I just noticed a commonality. You're not going to have teams finish winless or undefeated against the spread. And, no knocks on people, but I'll see so many handicappers picking teams because they're good against the spread or fading teams because they're bad against. And, again, it's almost like a fallacy because if you look back the last 20, 30 years, you're not going to see, 10, 12 teams finish 20-something% against the spread. It's just not going to happen. They'll be in the high 20s, but you're just not going to see it. So most of my picks here are going to be spread picks. And, again, there's no need to bore you. I don't know anybody who plays for Jacksonville State or Sam Houston. I genuinely don't. I don't even know their mascots, anything of that nature. But I do like that game and a bunch of other ones. So I'm going to go into make it quick as possible. I know these aren't the most fun videos, these spread videos. I know people like to see narratives. But to me, beating Vegas is always number one. So you'll see I have a slew here. And I'm going to go into them. Right in the middle here, you see Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State over 36.5. Now, normally I wouldn't pick this over because I feel like the public will be slamming it because it's pretty low. But that being said, it's all obviously, you have to know the teams, and I'm assuming the fan bases or the people that watch both of these teams understand that they don't score very much. So anyway, I like the over because Jacksonville State has yet to go over this year. They're like 0-4 on the over. Sam Houston State's not much better. I think they're 1-3. They might be 2-2, but not a winning record on the over. But more importantly, again, we have a team that's 0-4 on the over, and I just don't see that continuing. Again, it could. But as you can see, I have quite a few picks here. More, just like last week, typically we're going to split, and we're not going to have so many teams finish, with a particular record against the spread. And it does qualify for the over-under as well. So this one is a Thursday game, just so you know it's going to be tomorrow. So if you want to lock this one, that's good. Now, some of my other ones, like I said, they're essentially the same theory. Vanderbilt, Missouri, under 54.5, same principle. Vandy, I don't think they've gone under all year, so I like the under on this one, especially 54.5. If you have a team who's gone over every game, public's more likely to take them. And while I'm on Vandy, I have this sequence here. I have them covering Missouri. As you can see, I had them covering Kentucky last week. They did not. Oddly enough, they're getting the same spread against Missouri. But, again, I like it because I think they're 0-5 on covers. And it's just something that I think they're going to turn around. I don't see this team finishing, winless on the cover, winless on the spread. And since we're about almost halfway through the season, it's again, a good time to get a lot of these teams. So, again, there's no crazy logic here. There's no narratives about these teams. It's just going into what I believe to be teams that are going to start covering spreads. So Vandy covers Missouri is a leg 2. I don't know why. I must type that in on accident. I typed just copy and paste it. So there we go. It's going to be a leg 2 for 2 units. It's one of a few leg 2s today, or that I'm playing for Saturday, but it's one of my few leg 2s. So while I was on Vandy, I just wanted to hit that. I have them covering Missouri there. And as I've already went into, we have them going under 54.5. Now, NC State, I have them beating Louisville. Same formula. Thing is, it's only like a 3-point spread. I think NC State's going to cover. Not very good on the cover. Louisville doing good on the cover. Also looks like slightly suspicious line. And it's 3 points. So instead of just taking a 3-point cover, I'm going to play it as a leg 2 for them to win this game. And it's almost 1.5 to 1. So as a leg 2, instead of just our normal, obviously, 1 unit profit, again, I do 25, 50, 100. If you do the same units as me, then it's going to be about a 2 net unit profit instead of a 1 unit net profit, which is how another way we're able to do good with the system. So again, I know nothing about these teams. It's literally just going into metrics and value. So playing this as a leg 2 is, in my opinion, a good play. We did it last week with, I think it was our USF upset. They were like 3.5-point dogs. And by playing them as a leg 2, they might not have been the one. It was one of them, though. And it just pays well. It winds up paying more than the 1 unit. So I like NC State for the win. Let me see if I can find which one we got as a leg 2. I know I picked a game where they were, 3-4 point dogs, and they wound up paying well. Here you see we took a shot at CU on leg 2. That's another reason I like this system is it really gives us a few cracks at it. I thought we had a college game. Oh, you know what? I post extra ones on my Buy Me a Coffee. I'm guessing it might have been one of these. I know I played it. Oh, it was Georgia State beating Coastal. That one came through clutch. We played that as a leg 3 on a... I just saw it late. It was Coastal Carolina. It was undefeated on the spread. And I said, we'll just play the money line. It was 220. And yeah, so as you can see, that profited 6 units. We're only supposed to profit one unit. 1 net unit. That's the goal. So to get 6 units is really, really good on a, single sequence. And that was a net too, of course. Again, it's one of the reasons that I use this system. It gives us multiple cracks. Sorry, I just wanted to find the one that I was looking for. We did play USF. I'm just trying to... They must have been a leg 1, I'm assuming. But anyway, I just wanted to show how, especially playing them plus odds, not all of them, but leg 2, leg 3 can really come through. So NC State, I got them winning as a leg 2. It'll pay a little over 2 units net if they do win. And it's only a 3-point spread, so I like that. That's a leg 2, by the way, for the Rams-Bengals loss. Obviously, I had the Rams winning. They didn't. And for the Bucs-Eagles loss is where I plugged in the Vandy, Missouri under. Next, I already went into Jacksonville. Now, this one I like, Arizona-Washington over 67.5. You might say, well, it's Washington, it's Penix. People are going to slam the over, but Washington actually hasn't gone over this year, which is very interesting. And again, you get these Pac-12 matchups, and they just seem to be shootouts. I've been saying this since last year. So this one I like because of the narrative a little bit, and I like the fact that Washington, with a Heisman winner, or Heisman candidate, sorry, I can't imagine that he's going to have too many more unders. So this one I like the over. Again, I matched all of my spreads up exactly with ESPN. That's the spreads the team ranking site uses. So when you're looking into just, team rankings and the team's record against the spread or action or any of these sites, and you look at spread records, they're all going to match up with ESPN. So these are the current ESPN lines, and I try and lock them where they're not going to change too much. But that's why I never will lock my picks like a week early. I just don't think it makes any sense unless you think it's going to move. But anyway, so yeah, the Arizona-Washington over. Again, these are mostly all leg 1s. And then next I like Iowa State to cover Oklahoma. Here's another example. Undefeated against I believe Oklahoma's undefeated against the spread, and Iowa State is below 500 against the spread. And again, it's a little early in the season, but for all these teams that are still undefeated or winless against a spread, they're just not going to hold. So that's why I use my 3-tiered system, as well as picking teams exclusively that suck or are really good against the spread. So I like Iowa State to cover there. Here I like Stanford to cover Oregon. Kind of 2 reasons again. Oregon undefeated against the spread, not to mention what they just did to Colorado. I think people are going to see that and say, okay, well, at least Colorado has a Heisman candidate, some good offense going. Stanford's kind of in a stagnant year, a year of stagnation. So I think people will think Oregon will cover the 27 pretty easy anyway. So I like Stanford to cover this and give Oregon its first loss against the spread. Then we got Michigan, Nebraska. Again, 39. Typically, I would be like, I think this might go under because it just seems like a low spread, but it's not that low. It's kind of right along the norm for these two teams. And again, Michigan has yet to go over this year. Nebraska's gone over once or twice, but again, it's more so because Michigan has not gone over once all year. So I think they go over. And then finally, as you can see, I have another money line underdog. I like Duke to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame's being positioned as a really strong team this year. So I found the 5-point spread, 5.5 it might have been. It's probably going to range on your book to be a little suspicious. I think it should be closer to maybe 7, 8, and I get Duke's at home. But I have a feeling, and Duke's undefeated. There's probably going to be a couple undefeated teams that lose. I don't think Duke's going to be one of them. I have a feeling they're going to win as a dog. They really seem to be pushing them this year, them and North Carolina. It's interesting. Obviously, they were always pushed as basketball schools, and maybe it's with those coaches retiring, soon to be retiring. They're just transitioning to football. I'm not sure exactly why, but it is interesting because Duke's having a good year. And I believe they had a decent year last year, along with North Carolina. So I do think that Duke has a good chance of winning this game. And at almost 2-1 odds, I think it's a good game to play. So again, I know it's not not the most fun thing in the world. These are just, I like to do this so everybody can see every pick we have beforehand, of course, and tail. And I think we're going to have another good college week. I think we were around 60-something% last week. We didn't play a ton of games. We're playing, again, exactly 10 today. Again, we're double dipping on Vandy. I got the under and the cover. And there's one more game. I went into this in its own video because it is one game that I think has a lot of narratives around it. And it's just a clear trap. And that will be the Colorado game, of course. They're playing USC. I have them covering the 21.5. I just don't see any other way around it. I think, again, last week was definitely to get the entire nation off of Colorado. And I think they did a good job of that. I don't see anybody taking Colorado outside of the money line to try and get some easy money, quick money, a quick 10x almost. Probably, I think it's close to a 7x because of the juice. But I just like the cover here. I think they're going to cover a game where USC wins, where it's pretty decisive, but it's not like we've seen last week. As I went into before, I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, and obviously there could be a plethora of different scores. I think the over/under is at 73 or something of that nature. So again, I could definitely see a 50-20, or yeah, I think it's 73.5 actually, or something of that nature. But I could definitely see something like a 53 type game, 53-31, something like that for the over/under, or so they get the cover as well, something maybe like 51. I think my original prediction was 51-30, something of that nature. I think it's going to be USC in the high 40, low 50s, and I think Colorado will reach 4 touchdowns, which will basically cover it for them, assuming, again, they get the high 40s. So the over/under looks suspicious at 73.5. I'm not playing that just because I have a lot, obviously, leg 3 on Colorado to cover. I like that play more. But if you wanted to play both of them, I do think that it's going to go over as well. I think people are assuming USC is going to put up like 50 something and Colorado's only going to drop like 14. And then it's going to make people pick not only the under, but also USC to cover. So entirely into why I liked Colorado for the cover. Again, as you can see, I'm not playing the over. I do like it. I might suggest something live. A lot of times if I see something live, especially with over-unders, I'll post it like in the Discord. I'll put out a community post, something of that nature. But for now, I'm just playing the Colorado cover. And here's the rest of our sequences. Like I said, we got 10 in total. And they are basically all just based off of the against the spread metric. I know it sounds goofy, but it really, really does work. I'm surprised I don't see it more. Now, it doesn't mean every week we're going to nail every team. You're going to have teams that remain undefeated, of course, against the spread or winless. But rolling into week 6, 7, 8, which, again, these are three-tier systems. All these sequences we got 3 cracks at. We're not going to have all these teams still at 100% or at 0%. So for people that like probability stats, numbers, what I just like to call simple profits, I think you'll like these types of videos. Obviously, it's not the most fun, but I'm all about beating Vegas, so I wanted to go into these. I stayed away from Utah, Oregon. My gut would lean me towards Utah, only because without camerizing, I think people are going to still just keep fading this team. Let me see, actually, who's going. But I think people are just going to keep fading them almost instinctively, like, okay, they're not the same team. And they're doing that with a lot of teams, actually. I think it's UCLA had DRT, DTR, I think it is. I mix it up. Dorian Thomas Robinson. And I noticed the public handle seems to be pretty anti UCLA since he left. And it makes sense. Same thing with TCU. And again, it doesn't mean these teams are never going to win. I just think when you have a top quarterback leave, people just assume the team's not going to be the same. Hendon Hooker leaving is another example. Richardson leaving Florida. These teams are still doing pretty darn good. So I think the public just assumes that Utah was such a trap last week. I went into it. What's interesting last week was Native American Appreciation Day weekend when these guys were all playing, and I had gone into how every Native American team win. There's only 4 teams recognized as Native American lineage: Florida State, Central Michigan, Utah, and there's one more pretty big team. I'm sure I'll think of them in a minute, but they all won, which was interesting. And it was more interesting because it was Hawaii, because they were all 50-50 or underdogs. Utah was a 3-point favorite, and it was a weird game for them to be a favorite in, because I don't think anybody really thought they were going to win, to be quite honest. I think people thought this is too good to be true. To me, it looked like a trap line, so that's why I like the Utes. The one team that lost was San Diego State Aztecs, who have caught flack and been denounced as a Native American team because apparently their mascot's offensive. So yeah, I'm always looking for trends. Like I said, all the Native American teams did win last week, and I also notice again that this backup quarterback or new quarterback comes in, and not for every single example, but for a lot of teams, I'm seeing almost a handful in the Pac-12 alone. A new quarterback comes in, and suddenly people assume he's not going to do as well, and then they're playing just fine. So Utah, Oregon State, I'm staying away from. I would lean Utah if I had to, but it's just not one I'm running out of my way to pick. And they're the Pac-12 champs, so I think it makes sense to keep them undefeated a little bit longer. So, yeah, as far as the rest, there's a lot of close games I'm sure people would like to know, like Florida, Kentucky. We got Ole Miss, LSU. But to me, they're just 50-50s. So if anything changes, I'll definitely go into them. But for now, this is it. Good bit of plays. Goal is not to hit them all. We're basically looking for a split or better. Or even if we get 40%, it's about hitting the right ones and just making sure we close the sequences. Again, a 3-leg loss, which is, say we lost Vanderbilt, Missouri under. That would be leg 2. I like to correct these, make sure they're all perfect. That's why I go over them. That way everybody tailing has the exact numbers. Sometimes I just copy and paste the pick. So what happens is I'll put it in, and then when I copy and paste it to the sequence, it's leg 1. But it's a leg 2. Anytime we have a loss, the next one's going to be leg 2. The only exception to the rule is going to be one here, which I accidentally corrected earlier, and I had it right the first time. The reason this is a leg 1 is, if you notice, we pushed on the Michigan-Rutgers game. So if we push on a leg 1, we're just going to run it again as a leg 1. We're not running it as a leg 2 because we didn't lose a unit. We got our unit back. So that's why that's a leg 1 again. But all the other ones, if we lose a leg 2, it goes to leg 3. If you missed my Lions-Packers pick, I went into that. And if we miss a leg 1, it moves to leg 2. So we missed Bucks-Eagles. So now we got Vandy, Missouri under, etc. The rest of these are leg 1s, like I said. I do it this way. That way you can basically just go right down the list and tail them all. And like I said, there's nothing much more to it. Just what I believe to be a good week of picking college spreads. So I'll have all of my NFL videos. At least I try and get the 1 o'clock games out first. So I'll have the rest of them, or at least most of them, out by tomorrow, maybe the next day. I already have the Lions pick out, so you can, you watch that video if you haven't seen it. And if there's any college games that I missed that I find interesting, I'll put them out as well. While I'm here, I'm just going to say I like the Liberty to beat the Aces. In my last video, I think it was 2 videos ago, they were down it was nothing crazy. They were down 7 points and about getting even odds, and I highly suggested people pile on the Liberty because it was obvious they were not going to lose, in my opinion, go down 0-2. It just didn't make sense to me. So sure enough, they came back, did perfectly fine, and just to win the whole thing, I think it's going to be the Liberty. They've been pushing them. I believe them and the Aces. I get they're playing each other. They've been pushing both of them for a while, all year essentially, because I think they're both new. I think they're both new teams, fairly new teams. But they're pushing Sabrina like she's Steph Curry. And it's not just her, it's the whole team. So I really do think that the Liberty get it done. So I would play them to win it all. I'm not even sure how much games are left. I just saw them for the first time a couple days ago, and I was like, oh, it's Sabrina. They're going to win. So that's just my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people share that sentiment because of the way they've been treated. They're the only team getting clicks, as Oregon's coach would say. So I find it really interesting. So yeah, we do have a Thursday game. It's not one that, I know nothing about either of these teams. I couldn't tell you the color of their jerseys. But yeah, Jacksonville State and Sam Houston. Again, I just picked that game because of the metric. And that one I have going over the 36.5. Typically, again, I'd pick the under because it looks weird. It looks like, well, they only need just a little over a touchdown a quarter combined to go over. But again, I like to play the metric. The metric has worked very, very successfully. And while suspicious lines have helped us, they haven't come through at the rate as playing just fading teams that are crappy on the over, or whatever the case may be, taking them if they haven't hit it. So, again, I think Jacksonville State's like 0-4, might be 0-5 on the over. So I think they finally go over this week. So again, not the most fun video, but I just like to get out. Again, if you can win money, that's what's most important. NFL videos, there's a couple that are very interesting. I think you'll find them interesting. Just some of the storylines we have, obviously. We have Browns, Ravens, which is going to be an interesting one. We have the what I think's most interesting. Hutch brought to my attention. There's 5 games where you have a guy playing his former team. Pretty good. Get Zeke versus the Cowboys, and there's a couple. There's a couple very interesting ones that I think is going to make it where they're definitely going to set some narratives. So I think we have a good week in college and the NFL. And either later tonight or tomorrow, I'll have all the NFL picks out. So take care and happy earnings.